Welcome to Now Serving a Site of Therapy, a client's introductory guide into the therapeutic world. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and comment on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. To schedule a therapy appointment, call us at 650-223-5065. For more information on this and other related topics, check out our blog at isotherapy.com, where you can also contact us through our website. I'm your host, Dalton Huckabe, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm grateful you've joined me.
We take into account like cultural factors, also education. I think there's a generation of us who perhaps had corporal punishment as a way of like disciplining. And then there's maybe our generation, not everyone, but like the idea of like, actually, why am I going to hit someone because they're not listening to me, right? Like, what really is that doing, right? And so even with that, like that makes it a bit complex because you're looking at yourself like, I mean, I did listen to my parents. I will say for myself, I listened to my parents. Okay.
Right. I was afraid of what would happen if I did it. And I know it.
Yes. And I also learned how to be sneaky so that I wouldn't get caught. Right.
Right. Like, exactly.
Right. But then when you look back on it, I think of one of the times I was a kid, I was afraid of dogs. And so I was at a place where there was a dog outside. So the door was open and I screamed because I was like, this dog is going to rush in, like most dogs rush in, right? And it led to, I will not repeat the words or the punishment, but it was like so out of context. Like now as an adult, I'm like, I'm your child and I'm afraid. I don't need you to.
And I didn't feel safe or protected in that time, right?
Yeah. So, that there's that aspect. And so for me, my goal as a therapist is just to make room for that, to be able to explore all that. There may be some grounding principles that we may all have or not have. So for example, like out loud, I'm not a supporter of corporal punishment. I'm not just who I am, mom. But also I understand where that feeling goes because I have had that thought. I'm like, if this was the early 90s, it would have been
right.
But I'm like, but it's not. But I have those, and like that doesn't make me a bad mom. It's just like you're thinking like, man, like I really would have, and
well, it's kind of like then when you talk about the feelings of guilt that might even be able to come with something like that too, right? And so it's about identifying like, hey, these are some of the emotions because we begin overpowered by the strong emotions, right? And so it's like, okay, the feelings are valid, right? And right, we can try to learn how to be able to identify what those feelings are, what might be coming up with us. Can we engage in this place of emotional regulation, right? And kind of de-escalation, if you will, right? Are we able to do that despite the feelings coming on so strong?
Yeah,
I don't know. What do you think? Or is there another piece to it than that?
No, I think that's 100% right. I cannot make a generalization of everyone who experienced corporal punishment, but I can make assumption that I have. So that's a me thing. This is not a research-based thing. That chances are, if your parents use corporal punishment, your emotional regulation is not that good. Like as an adult, like it's just not that good. It needs work. That doesn't mean like I'm going to be stuck like this forever. It's just I need work on it. Our parents and grandparents probably needed work on it too, but we can't.
Exactly. I was born in 73. And so when I was in elementary school, there were still paddles. Like,
yes.
But it's like, okay, well, yeah. So maybe I was more well-behaved, which might have been the intention, right? But at the sacrifice of what? Feeling like I can't express my emotions, right? Going to that emotional regulation piece, right? Feeling like I can't express myself or tell my truth, and I just have to stuff that down. Like, that's not a good trade-off.
But then that feeds into, and this is the social worker in me, but then that feeds into like as a society of like, what's the message we send to employees, right? Like you might be going through a rough day, better not show it. You just need to keep going and doing all
That's
this, right?
right. Yeah.
while it's not the same thing, some of those practices do translate to adulthood, and unfortunately, like then how we work, right? Because it's that piece. And so I also like to give light to that piece. It's like, listen, I understand, that you were told this and this is how it's going to be. And then you have a child. And then you're like, I'm going to do it this way. And there's nothing really like a child that can really humble you. And be like, absolutely not. I think a big one I had, I was like, I'm never going to feed my kids McDonald's ever. I rolled up to McDonald's like 2 days ago. Okay. First one in line. Okay. I'm like, we're going to sports. Everybody get their meal, like, and the thing is like, and that's an example sometimes that I'll use is like, you could do everything what you would perceive is correct. But the reality is every kid is still going to love McDonald's French fries. Like, it's like, it's something, like I meet very few people who are like, I don't love it. They'll say, I know it's not healthy. I know, but everyone will get to that point. And so that kind of means like, yes, try your best, but don't hold it so much that, you're being so hard on yourself when eventually your kid is either going to have fries, eat dirt. That's my favorite one, when they eat dirt, or things like that. Right. And it's just like, I try to give examples to kind of just like normalize it.
We were talking, I was thinking about, okay, well, yeah, so the importance of tuning into maternal mental health is important for the now, right? The way that we're showing up for ourselves, the way we're showing up for others too, right? And I couldn't help but think of, when we think about this aspect of maternal mental health, what happens if we don't tend to it when it's happening earlier on, right? What could happen? Like, what kind of influence might that have later on down the road?
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of insights or into
yeah,
that?
no, absolutely with that, and I want to say it is okay if you don't have it figured out at the year mark. Like,
Right.
like, because we all go through different things.
It's not? Are you sure? Are you sure
Yeah,
it's not?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's a thing, and so, so clinically speaking, anything over the year of the baby's birth is then considered whatever the diagnosis is. So if you're postpartum depression, it's considered depression. Same thing with anxiety, same thing with OCD and psychosis. So like anything out of that 2-week to a year mark is then just becomes the regular DSM diagnosis.
I see. Diagnosis.
Yeah. But the thing is like, one of the hardest things, I think even just thinking about it in the future, because I think it can be daunting, like one of the hardest things about being a parent is that you have to look at yourself. Like you got to look at yourself and your own feelings. And I have met so many women, parents who want the best for their child, but then struggle to be like, oh, but I'm the problem. Like, but you know what I mean? Like I'm the problem right there. It's like, hi. And so with that, like, it typically will take longer than a year, because what you might identify. So for example, I think of like, right, the first year of a child's life is the fastest growing that you'll see of them going like through things, right? The next time we'll see this is teenagers. And, I think like you may get it down, right? And then the next day the baby's going to change. And now you have no idea kind of like what it is that you're doing. So it's actually quite common to go past the year mark. And that is where I've had clients who have been, they weren't diagnosed with postpartum depression in the beginning, but as they've talked to me, I've kind of like had that. And then sometimes it could be like a baseline of like, this is where I was, and now this is kind of where like I would want to go, or to like try it out. Because there's really so many ways that you can be a parent, so many different ways. And even though we do push the books and we push all this stuff, there really is no one way to kind of like do this. And so because I think most of the time it goes further than the year mark. And the way that I say to approach that for yourself, or even as a therapist for your client, is like, okay, again, where are you right now? Okay, like where where is this happening? Like for me, oh, I don't have it in my background anymore, but I think I shared with my daughter, I had a really hard time. I had postpartum depression and anxiety. It was diagnosed after the fact. And it really wasn't until about like the year and a half that I started to feel like myself again. And I don't have it here, but I have a photo. It was a Christmas photo of me and my daughter. And when I look at that picture, I can remember like the recovery. I can remember like, oh no, like, yeah, Veronica, you were back. Like you were feeling like yourself, right? But part of that work there is I had to, at the year mark, I became a working mom, right? And so there's also sometimes this narrative of like, you need to stay at home with this baby. And that's going to make them the most perfect baby ever, right? I did it for a year.
Myth, we can get into myths, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
100% myth. Research says that. But I think also just speaking for me, there are some women who that is part of their identity or what is it they want. And
Sure.
It's okay.
Which could be important for them, right? If it's important for them, then like you said, no wrong way to do it, right? Yeah.
Yes. But for me, I never want to stay home with a baby for a year ever again. I did it one time, and I am a better mom when I talk to adults, when I tend to myself. I know this, okay? Doesn't mean that I love my sons less because I didn't stay the whole year or whatever amount of time that you think you need to stay at home with a child. Like, actually love them more because I knew from this 1 year experience, I wasn't at my best, but I was at my best when I was working on myself, doing things that I found passion in, like things like that. Cause then I bring that joy, right? You're pouring into yourself. I'm pouring out to them. Right.
This
so
aspect of like caring for ourselves, therein can we like experience aspects of resilience and joy in motherhood, like you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about that joy. I think the thing that comes up to me is like this idea of like reclaiming yourself. Like, the question is like, okay, so how do I do that, right? And this is one of those moments where I remind people it's not just about actions. Like some people would be like, you just need to drink more water, Veronica. And if you slept, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. No, I was thinking 2 weeks ago, I have 3 kids. They passed each other the stomach bug over and over. I didn't sleep for 2.5 weeks, right?
Oh my Lord.
It was awful.
Oh my
right?
Lana.
But if someone would have come up to me and said, you just need to sleep, Veronica, make sure you drink your water and your vitamins, I would have lost it. That would have been the thing that would have like done it. And so
was the corporal punishment towards adults?
Yes.
Oh yeah, battery.
Yes, battery, yeah. Something, right? And so like when it comes to that, I think one of the practices that I use for myself and also with my clients is like naming what it is that you feel like you've lost, right? Is it identity? Is it autonomy? Like you really don't realize how amazing it is to use the bathroom by yourself until you have a baby right there, like watching you know?
Everywhere, right? Everywhere.
Yes, right? Like you didn't know that's what it was. Or even drinking hot coffee. Okay. I don't think I drank one single hot coffee until my child was over a year. And I was like, oh yes, people do this. Like, things like that, right? So I got to name what it is that I lost. And I'm saying about coffee and I'm saying about using the restroom, but like those things are valid things to say, like, I have lost. Okay. It doesn't have to be this groundbreaking thing. It's identifying, okay, I lost that.
Yeah, it's a loss of personal time, for example. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And like you said, being able to identify it and it can make a big difference.
Yeah, and I do think it comes with practice. So this can be a bigger conversation, but I do think like even when we talk about ways to like reclaim your identity, or like I'm sharing kind of like the order or the system that I use, right? And kind of like moving through this, like it's okay. You need to go through enough practice of it for it to be engraved in you. So for example, for myself, I think honestly, I'm an amazing mother. Y'all, you cannot tell me anything. Do I yell at my kids? I love that. Absolutely, I yelled at my kids. Have I been like, that's it, I'm gonna run away? And I think absolutely. But the thing that I always come back to is like, okay, so what is it about me? What am I losing right now? And sometimes it is like, Veronica, you've just been doing so much for these kids. What about you? Or it's the piece of like looking at my work. Hey, right now, this thing, right now, political climate, like what's happening with ICE, that has been really weighing heavy. I need to identify that. And so with enough practice, it becomes like, you understand that you're not going to show up at your most perfect. You have to forgive yourself. You also can model forgiveness for your child. So there's many a times that I have gone to my kid and I'm like, I am so sorry. Me yelling at you had nothing to do with what you were doing. I was just overstimulated. Not the, if you wouldn't have done this, I wouldn't have yelled at you. No. It's that it was me, you know, and normalizing that. So my kids know, hey, like I said, I think I'm an amazing mother, but I lose it too. And I know that I can go say sorry. And I know that I'm going to learn from it. But I forgot who I heard that said this, but it was like the idea that like, when as people are humans, we stop learning is pretty much when we die. So it's kind of like this piece, right? So there's like the naming of it. And then the other thing is the big word that sometimes I think is associated with therapy is about your boundaries. All right, like let's check in on those. Let's check in on our emotional, our relational, even time-based boundaries. Like
exactly, yeah. Boundaries are like time-based and space, right? Time, space, different ways to think about boundaries. And, and which were based on values, right? So if we can say, hey, I feel like I'm losing out on this personal space time, right? What are some ways I can like try to like work on having, like you said, like a little bit of me time, right? And setting up kind of some structure and boundaries around that and not feeling guilty for it.
Yes. And so this is where I will often say, like, you just need to, what is it? Not practice before you're, what is it? The idea that you pretend like you're already like that person, but you're not. Like,
act as if?
Act as if. Like sometimes this is what this needs to be. Okay. Because as a clinician, I'm looking at you cognitively. You've only had your experiences that you've had is what's framing what's happening here. So you want to give your brain a different experience. And so you may not believe it, but what would you say to your child? What would you say to a friend, right? So looking at that. So naming it, boundaries. Also putting away with this idea of self-care being like an indulgence. We need it all, and it looks different for all of us, right? But we need it to sustain ourselves. All right, like it's not
self-care is different from self-compassion, right?
Exactly.
So self-care, bubble bath, right? Self-compassion, how can I treat myself the way I would a friend?
Absolutely. And like I feel like I keep reminding people of that, right? And so when you're so naming what's lost, really looking at your boundaries in regards to that area. And then, asking yourself, what are the things that I can do right now, like in a season? And this is where I want to emphasize that, like, for example, my kids are older. They're 8, 6, and almost 5. I can get a sitter and go take my ballet class and know that they're going to be okay. But if you would have hit me up when they were 6 months, a year and a half, and 2.5, no, I could have never imagined doing that. I would have beside myself, right? And so like also acknowledging like you may want to be a ballerina, right? Like in this place where I'm at, a ballerina, but it may look differently for a while. So that can be like when you have which I've seen more and more of, like where I do ballets, like the encouragement of if your kid can sit down there, bring the kid to ballet. Like it's not going to be perfect. I know that's not what you want, but that's the season that you're in, right? And so
so there's a way.
You have to get creative. I think we have to get very creative, and
allowing ourselves the permission, right? Like you said, it's like earlier on, it's like, you have to like pry them from my hands, right? But is that sustainable long term too, right? So right. So starting to think of these other ways and
and getting creative with it. I always encourage getting creative with, like, there is nothing off the table when we're first talking about this, of like what you can do. Because the first few times, again, we're teaching a new skill, right? We're identifying what's lost. Okay, how can I get this back? Right? And what boundaries do I have regarding that, or lack of boundaries that I have regarding that? Right? I encourage, and I've done this myself, like thrown out all the ways that I think I can solve this, like all of it. I think my young social worker heart one time was like, dismantle the systems.
Yes,
Like,
yes,
you
yes,
know, like,
yes.
so big, you know, and like nothing's off the table, because again, you want to tell your brain like, hey, it's valid that you think this, like it's valid that you want to change a system or want to do these things, but what can we do in this time? So that's kind of like my little formula of what I think of how you reclaim yourself. Again, like identifying what's been lost, what percentage you could do to get that back. That might take time though, you know, and this is where I have a hard time when people are like, just drink more water. You just drink a little bit more water.
Oh my God, I can't
right?
with
And it's
that.
like,
I can't
no,
with that.
yeah. And it's like, no, this is going to take time. And perhaps that is, and I will say this for me, for after I had my child was a year and I went to therapy, I needed someone who could look at me and be like, you are not a bad mom. You're not a bad mom because you wish you could go back and be alone. You're not a bad mom if you locked yourself in the closet to cry because your child will not let you, you know, think, or things like that.
Yeah, I can't even think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Think,
Something
like,
as basic as thinking, right? Like who
yeah.
knew? Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, that was what was lost about me at that time. And it's changed, y'all. I mean, we can talk about a whole idea of how my motherhood journey, but like at
For
that
sure, for
time,
sure.
that is what I needed, right? I needed therapy that could help me, especially regarding like my identity and how I viewed rest. So for us, like type A goal getters, I don't rest until I finish the goal. Okay. So we're coming out of burnout, right? I needed someone to say like, Veronica, you are not your performance. You're not your performance. Who you identify as a mother this is not like a performance thing. Okay. I needed someone, again, type A, someone to say like, I know you feel ashamed about needing to take breaks or needing to ask for help, or even just saying out loud this. Your feelings are these feelings, but they're not true. This is just something that you feel, but I want to remind you, like, it is okay. It is okay to ask for help. And I know you may not feel comfortable asking for help, but I need you to do it anyway. Right. And, you know,
Act as if,
act as if, right. And then also like rebuilding self-trust, because when for a long time we deprive ourselves of like honoring these feelings or regulating our emotions or where we're at, we lose the, should I be feeling like this? Maybe I should be handling different. So we do need to rebuild that. Because we need that. And, you know,
is part of not losing ourselves, right? Kind of part of that
Mhm.
maintaining our identity, as you were saying too. Yeah. And I think that's something that's been coming up for me, is like, as you're talking about, it's like, you know, for kind of experiencing again these kind of strong emotions, is that, you know, none of us knows what the future is going to be going to hold, right? But likely what you're experiencing now, like it's likely not going to be last forever, right? And so it's likely that you might experience a shift. Yeah, it might be, you know, we don't know what that shift might look like, but it is going to change in some way. And so I think to be able to acknowledge, okay, like, well, this is where I am right now, right? How can I be with myself? How can I support, you know, get support? How can I, you know, get creative, right? With wherever I am at right now, knowing that you know, I can't get back to ballet, you know, in the future at some point. It's just right now. It might be having to put it on hold. And so being able to try to frame it in that way, so it's not leaning towards the kind of these catastrophizing, right? Oh, it's going to be forever, right? There's always and never forever kind of tendencies that might come up.
Absolutely. And I think, I know for some ballet can be silly, but it's also, I'm speaking as a Black mother, you know, the idea that unfortunately we live in a world where I need to sit down and tell my sons, who are 5 and 6, all right, you can't wear a hoodie to school. You can't wear that. It means like saying that when a police officer talks to you, you need to obey everything that is being said. And when they ask why, it's having that conversation with it's age appropriately, okay? Because I will say that my kids are so young, and I haven't even broached slavery with them. It breaks my heart anytime I think about it, right? But then also, like, part of that support is like, so when we're talking about like it can't change over time, yes, things have gotten better in regards to how we interact as a whole and like diversify and like all those things. But there's maybe the underlying thing that has not changed, right? Like no Black parent wants to tell their kid, you're gonna just, it's gonna happen. You're gonna walk into a store. I mean, I think for myself, I'm like, I have my doctorate, I'm educated, I did great. I just came back from New Orleans and I flew first class, right? And
nice.
amazing. But then the white woman sitting next to me, she could not move any further away from me.
Are you serious right now?
But Louisiana, okay, like we're not in California. You see, like kind of put it in context. Yeah, Louisiana, right? And so like things like that, like I can't change that, but I know that that's happening less and less as more people are getting educated and being introduced to these things. So I guess I just wanted to make a statement of like things like that. I hope they don't go on forever, but I had to do that. My parents had to do that. Their parents had to do that, you know, and it's something that it's like a generational thing that's there. But the hope is like, and I think how I describe it, our ancestors, is like, it's going to get a little bit better, and hopefully it won't be forever. Because so it's not just like the season you're in. Some things is like, I am always going to be worried about my kids.
Yes.
It's just there because even though their mother has a doctorate, owns her own practice, volunteers at their school, you know, gives them the best of everything, unfortunately, there are still people who look at their skin and make a decision. And so that sucks. And I got to prepare you for this. And I know for me, for this, I cry about this all the time. About it all the time. Yeah. Because, you know, that's just like a hard conversation to have. And then also hearing your kids ask, but why? And so like, even, you know, talking about, you know, these things, it doesn't just have to be like racial or things, but like, we do need to make room for talking about that. And sometimes as a clinician, you just need to hear someone out. I think the first time I went to therapy, I would use more colorful words that I'm going to say right now, but I'm like, why do I have to do this? And the same thing, I was like, I have my doctorate, I make this much money, I do this. Why? I needed to like rage out on this whole thing, right? That's your powerful therapist to kind of hear that, or if you're hearing it from a friend, you know. So sometimes even when it comes to like facing like what's true and what unfortunately for the foreseeable future will be true, like you can still make room to hear that person out. And at least for me, I need someone to cry with me about this every time that I think about it. You know, like I said, I just came back from New Orleans, and so I visited a plantation for the first time. Right?
Oh, you did?
Huh. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And so like things like that, I am like 100% like feeling all those feelings. And then like a month prior to that, I visited Accra, Ghana, which is where there's like the Cape Coast Castle. This is where they tortured the slaves when they would bring in, and you walk through the places that they held them in. You walk through how dark it was in there. You walk through all these things, right? And so for me, that still stays with me, right? So like that's part of my motherhood. I cannot look away from that as much as it's just because it's true. And so we need someone just for the whole thing, because I feel like that's a whole conversation about motherhood and race and identity.
For sure. Yeah.
But yeah, the support.
No, it's good. It's good. No, you're right in that. And like you said, like at the end of the day, like you want the best for your child, right? And you want to protect them, and you're always going to be worried, right? Are they okay, right? Totally get all that. And we can see like how these kind of oppressive uh uh nature in society can can add on to the maternal mental health is what I'm trying to get at, right? And so being able to kind of you're exposing yourself to learn about that, right? And to kind of be able to speak about it to your kids so that it can feel a little bit more, hey, knowledge is power. And also like I don't know. It's like yeah, I guess it's kind of like that aspect of, hey, if I can own this, then there's this. It's a I hate to use this word, like it's lack of a better word, like the sense of empowerment, right? Because then it's not feeling like it's impacting me. I'm like owning, like, yes, this is my history, like this is where I come from, and I'm teaching that to my kids too. And so it's kind of like seeing acting, I guess, as an act of resilience, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But but also
Absolutely.
like an empowerment stance too.
Yes, because we do, right? That's part of resiliency. And I think as a clinician, yes, I do talk about the identity. I talk about all these things, but I also make room to talk about, like, especially since I work primarily with women of color or people of color, sometimes you need a moment to just like acknowledge, like, I mean, I work with mothers who are doctors, lawyers, all those, like high functioning women. And we all come back to the same conversation sometimes.
Definitely gave some takeaways, right? Especially around that kind of like owning the identity, right? And like you said, a lot of I keep saying this every time on almost every topic, right? Where we're just kind of like we're just brushing the the surface level of it, right? Like you said, there's way more to complexity and in-depthness to this conversation. But I do really appreciate what you brought to the table today, and in engaging in this much important, topic, especially considering that, I mean, you've went through the doctorate program, right? Like you said, it's like, it's not really, it's like kind of like skimmed over. It's like, right. So giving it like just more airtime and more, the more attention that it needs.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely the goal of being here. It's my mini goal of like in the work that I do, right? Like,
that's your life's purpose, right?
This, I do. Honestly, I do believe it's my life purpose, and I think it's my life purpose, and I think in the blessing that like I get to be a mother at the same time. So it's like I'm growing up, like just putting it out there for people listening. I am a therapist, and I am still a hot mess, right? Sometimes, and like. But then there's just some beauty in that, because like when I tell a client, hey, don't be hard on yourself, like I know what that hardness is because I've experienced it, right? Like it's because we're going to continue to be in this way. So yeah, maternal mental health is something that's a big, big conversation. I think it has been getting more airtime, especially as we've talked about, like when we hear about celebrities. So like, what was it, 8 years ago, Serena Williams, how she like almost died, these things, like even she's Serena Williams and she still experienced, unfortunately, systems that did not help her. And so I think it's just important to keep talking about it, and it's going to change. It's going to change, and it applies to everyone differently. But yeah, you could get me to talk about this forever because it's my favorite.
Well, I appreciate you. Yeah. And who knows? I mean, hey, who's to say we can't meet again, right? To continue the discussion. So it's very possible too.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for tuning in this week. Be sure to listen to our next episode as we explore various aspects of how to show up for ourselves and others by tending to our own mental and emotional well-being.